We weren't rich, not even close, but we had figured out how to tread water without swallowing too much. I'd clock in at the hardware plant by sunrise, knock out a full day, then head to some back alley bar or closed warehouse for a freelance, security consult, cash jobs, mostly. Just enough to fill the gaps the factory paycheck didn't. The wear and tear showed in my bones more than my bank account. Our home was modest, tucked between two units that seemed stuck in time, one always hosting a barbecue, the other always under renovation but never finished. But it was ours. It was built with late nights, budgeting apps, and the kind of tired that settles in your spine like cement. Camille used to work in marketing, good at it too, but after her last job dissolved in some corporate restructure, she quit, said she was done being undervalued, and swore she'd find something better. That was over a year ago. Since then, her job hunt had evolved into long naps, online shopping, and too many wine glasses drying by the sink. I told myself she needed time. We'd argued about it a few times, nothing explosive, but enough to plant a seed of tension between us. I figured the resentment would fade once something came through for her. I didn't expect the something to arrive with leather seats and a panoramic sunroof. It was a Tuesday afternoon when it happened. I'd come home early from a canceled consult, pulling into the driveway to find it already occupied. A gleaming white Range Rover sat like a sculpture in front of our garage, brand new, not a speck of dirt on it. I slowed to a stop, confused. For a second. Maybe it was a neighbor's car. A delivery? I walked closer, keys still in my hand, heart starting to drum for reasons I couldn't name. The front door opened. Camille stepped out in a flowy cream blouse I didn't recognize. She didn't look surprised to see me. In fact, she smiled, tossed her keys on the counter with a casual flick of her wrist, and leaned against the door, framed like she'd just gotten back from brunch with friends. "Do you like it?" she asked, her voice breezy, almost playful. I stared at her, at the Range Rover, at the absurdity of the moment. What is this?" "It's leased," she said, waving it off. "Long term. Don't worry." I blinked. "Leased? How?" "With what money?" She smiled, tight-lipped and too fast. The kind of smile that felt practiced. I have my ways. That was it. No details. No plan. Just that infuriatingly vague reply. I looked at the car again. The shine of the hood, the fresh rubber of the tires, the dealership tag still hanging from the mirror like it was proud to announce its escape from the showroom. I felt something twist deep in my gut. Not jealousy, not anger. Something colder, something that told me, without even knowing the details, that something had shifted and I'd missed it. She turned and walked inside like she had groceries to put away, leaving me standing on the porch with the sunlight bouncing off the windshield and burning the back of my neck. I didn't follow her right away. I just stood there, letting the silence sink into my ears. The world felt tilted, off balance. We didn't talk about it that night. Not really. I asked again later while she was cooking frozen shrimp in a sauce she read about on Pinterest. "Camille," I said, "we're already stretched. A lease like that." She didn't look up from the skillet. "It's handled." That's not an answer. She turned then, slowly wiping her hands on a towel. "I told you. I'm not helpless. I found an opportunity and I took it. You should. Be happy. We've got a reliable car now." "But how?" She stared at me, and for a brief second I saw something flicker behind her eyes. Not guilt, not pride, just calculation, like she was weighing whether I could handle the truth, or whether she even owed me that much. Finally, she said, "Don't worry, it's not your problem." But it was. It was sitting in my driveway like a flag planted in soil I thought was shared. And in that moment I realized I was no longer sure what parts of our life belonged to both of us, and which had become hers alone. That night, after she went to bed, I stood at the front window in the dark, looking out at the Range Rover under the streetlight. It didn't belong here. It was too clean, too loud in its silence, too full of unanswered questions. My reflection in the window looked older than it had that morning. Tired, smaller. I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the payments, the insurance, the risk, and the fact that she didn't ask, not even once. No conversation, just arrival. Micah wandered out around midnight, rubbing his eyes. "Why are you up, Dad?" I tousled his hair and whispered, "Couldn't sleep? Want to play cards?" I smiled. "Just one round." "All right." We sat on the couch and played a quick hand of Go Fish. He was bright, observant. He didn't ask about the new car, not yet, but I caught him glancing toward the driveway, and I knew the questions were coming. As I tucked him back into bed, I kissed his forehead and lingered there a moment longer than usual. Then I went back to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and stared again out the window. The Range Rover gleamed under the moonlight, and I said, "Nothing, not yet." Most of which meant nothing to me, but one name stood out immediately. Bryce. I didn't need a last name. I knew. Beneath the phone and cash was a pair of gloves, leather, black, brand new but folded with care. Not for fashion. These weren't stylish. They were functional, grip-lined. Unmistakably the kind of gloves used to avoid leaving prints. I backed away. My heart was thudding now, but I kept my face neutral. I had no idea if Camille was watching from a window. No idea what this setup meant yet. Drug money, blackmail, a cover for something worse. I only knew that whatever it wasn't impulsive. This had planning behind it, layers. And if this was the trunk, I didn't want to know what the rest of the iceberg looked like. I looked over at Micah. He hadn't moved. His small hands clutched his backpack straps like they were the only thing holding him upright. When he saw my face, he didn't ask anything. He just looked at me, eyes wide and brimming with something that made my stomach twist. Not fear for himself, fear for me, fear of what this would do to us. "Come here," I said gently, motioning with my hand. He walked over slowly. When he reached me, I dropped to one knee and rested a hand on his shoulder. "You've seen this before?" I asked. He nodded once. "You didn't tell me."